Good evening, friends. Today's topic is how to successfully execute valuation assignments. As we all know that in this country, in Chapter 17, Section 247 of the Companies Act 2013, this first time a new provision has been brought into existence, and that is the registered valuers. Accordingly, the Ministry of Corporate Affairs brought out the rules and regulations relating to the valuation in this country. Accordingly, uh, first time in this country, under the Companies Act, it is mandatory for valuations to be done by a person who is a qualified registered valuer who has passed the examination and is a member of IBBI. Now, friends, for the professionals like chartered accountants, cost accountants, company secretaries, and also MBAs, and going forward, even for the graduates also, because even graduates are also eligible to become registered valuer. The only condition is the graduates in finance, they have to have 5 years of experience, which is 3 years in case of the postgraduates and the company secretaries, cost accountants, and chartered accountants and MBAs. So now, uh, though it's a wonderful opportunity for the professionals, but merely becoming a member of IBBI, merely becoming a registered valuer, perhaps is not enough. What is more important is to understand the uh, secrets of the trade, tricks of the trade, skills of the trade, standards of the trade, rules of the trade or profession, so as to be able to successfully execute a valuation assignment. And when I say successfully execute a valuation assignment, now what does it mean? It means number one, your client must be happy the way you have gone about executing the whole valuation assignment. At the same time, you should adhere to the standards and the code of conduct and the norms of the governance as far as valuation are concerned. So, friends, keeping this objective in mind, uh, as part of this 30 topics, 30 days, 30 program series, I thought of this topic. Why not to share some of the thoughts and ideas as to how to successfully execute a valuation assignment? Because ultimately, if the profession has to come up, if the profession has to develop, if the profession has to evolve for the benefit of the economy, then it is absolutely necessary. All the professionals should be able to do a fantastic job as far as the execution is concerned. And that is how this session we have friends today for next 1 hour. So what is the purpose of this session? Purpose of any business, as we all know, is to create value by making ethical profits or making ethical profits by creating value. For achieving this purpose by the businesses across the board, corporates need to take many decisions day in and day out involving organic and inorganic means of growth. So obviously, if a business has to if a business has to create value by making ethical profits, then the business has to take a lot of decisions, and all these decisions will involve the means of growth that can be organic or it can be inorganic. So any such decision which the corporates take has to be supported by evaluation of the decision objective. तो सीधी सी बात है कि कोई भी कंपनी अगर ऐसा कोई बड़ा डिसीजन ले रही है, चाहे वो इनऑर्गेनिक ग्रोथ का हो या ऑर्गेनिक ग्रोथ का हो या फिर इश्यू ऑफ फ्रेश शेयर कैपिटल का हो या फिर कॉर्पोरेट रीस्ट्रक्चरिंग का हो, देयर आर so many things for which valuations need to be done. Now all these decisions need to be supported by valuation. For this they require help of a valuation professional. So obviously, valuation is a profession by itself. So a businessman whose job is to run the business cannot do the valuation by himself. He would be able to make use of the information about valuation for the purpose of decision making, that's a different story altogether. But he can't do the evaluation, because valuation is a profession by itself. It's an expert's job. So somebody who's qualified and competent, he only can do that. So any businessman, any corporate will need support of professional business valuers. And the valuation professional have to, that means a valuation professional or the valuation professional per se have a very important role to play in the corporate decision making. Therefore, it is absolutely imperative that valuation professionals do an excellent job in execution of any valuation assignment. And so I'm sure, friends, you can connect the relationship between the growth of the economy and the valuation done by a valuation professional. So a valuation done by a valuation professional is going to help the corporate in taking a decision, and that decision is going to contribute to the growth of the economy. And that is the significance and importance of the role of a valuation professional as far as the economic growth is concerned. So therefore, friends, the purpose of this session is to get a very good grounding in various aspects of execution of evaluation assignment, and to be aware of various aspects of corporate decision making, of and also of various approaches and methods used for evaluation, which in any case we all are aware of. But what we need to be aware of, friends, as valuation professionals, we are already aware as to which are the methods and which are the approaches. But more than that, what we need to understand as to which approach is to be used in which situation, which method is to be used in which situation. That is very, very important, and for all of us to understand. And that is the purpose of this session, so as to be aware as to when to use which method, and also to become aware of various. Purpose is also to become aware of various steps required for successful execution of evaluation assignments. Friends, this is the purpose that we have behind this session. What are we going to cover in this session, friends? A lot of things. It's always my endeavor to make all these sessions that I deliver with you, that I share with you, full of knowledge and full of a lot of content, a lot of useful content, so that you are able to directly make use of all these contents in your own practice. So what are we going to cover in this session of 1 hour? Of course, it's a long agenda, but then this is what we intend to cover. And this session, based on what we're going to cover, this session is going to be useful for accounting, finance, and corporate professionals. Is going to be useful for the management and corporate advisors. It is also be useful for the registered professional valuers who are already registered and practicing, and those who are going to who wish to be become registered valuer going forward. This program, friends, will also help all the businessmen and members of top management teams of all businesses who are concerned with the maximization of value creation. Undoubtedly, this session will also help practicing cost accountants, chartered accountants, company secretaries, and other finance and accounting professionals, as they will be able to get a lot of a good comprehensive understanding of the entire process of valuation, and how to ensure that we execute a valuation assignment successfully to the satisfaction of our client, and also to the satisfaction of our own, at the same time without compromising on the code of conduct or the governance norms or the good practices as far as the valuation profession is concerned. So this is how is everybody is going to benefit. And this session will also benefit the merchant bankers, investment bankers, investment analysts, and financial analysts also, because they also will get a comprehensive view at one place in 1 hour as to what all undergoes in case of any valuation exercise. And finally, friends, need I mention, it is also going to be useful for all the students of CA, CS, CMA, MBA, CIMA, and all the professional courses in the domain of accounts and finance, where today the evaluation is becoming a very important integral part of all the professional courses. So friends, this is my endeavor that all these people should find this session useful. They should find it valuable. It should really help them in their own practice. And if that happens, I would really feel very happy and satisfied about it. As I said, we are going to have a long agenda, a lot of things we are going to cover in this program. So what are we going to cover in this program? We start with the provisions of section 247 which is part of chapter 17. Professionals recognized to carry out valuation under different statutes. So friends, remember, today valuations are required under the Companies Act. Valuations are required as per the FEMA or RBI, or valuations are required as per the Income Tax Act, and valuations are also required as per the SEBI regulations. Now, these are the four main areas of where the valuations are required. Of course, there are many other areas as well, but these are the prominent ones. So in these areas, who is eligible to do the evaluation? And that is what we need to be aware, so that we know as to, as a registered valuer, where do I have scope and where all I do not have the scope. Then we talk about the requirements of valuation under different chapters of the Companies Act. Friends, under the Companies Act, any valuation, and we are talking about the valuation primarily of securities and financial assets. So under the Companies Act, if any valuation is to be done, that valuation has to be essentially, mandatorily, compulsorily has to be done by a registered valuer only, a valuer who's registered with IBBI. So it's useful for us to understand under which all chapters of the Companies Act valuations are required, because as a registered valuer, it is very important, useful for us to know कि हम कहाँ valuation कर सकते हैं, कौन से chapter as per the Companies Act the valuation are required, because then I can prepare myself so as to be able to do the valuation under all those chapters. And remember, we not only stick to the chapters under which the valuations are required, but we would also look at in today's session as to which are the sections under which are sections of the Companies Act under which the valuations are required by a registered valuer. Again, friends, this is to know as to how big is the size of the market for you. And I can tell you, friends, the size of the market is really very big. Then we of course discuss the requirements of valuation standards of ICAI and or IVSC as the case may be. Absolutely necessary, imperative, compulsory, no choice. We have to adhere to these standards. Depending on, in case somebody is a member of chartered accountant, then he has to compulsorily, while making the evaluation or while making the report, he has to compulsorily adhere to the standards issued by the valuation standards issued by the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. Now, for the members of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, the valuation standards standard issued by the ICAI are compulsory. But for the other professions, they can follow the standards issued by ICAI, which personally I would very strongly recommend, because standardization का मतलब ये है कि uniformity हो. So just because the standards are issued by the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, it does not mean the other members should not adhere to them. I think they should adhere to them. And then you also have an option that you also have the standards issued by the International Valuation Standards Committee, IVSC. So you can also follow the standards issued by the IVSC, because more often than not, whenever any statute is requiring valuations to be done by any professional, the statute would stipulate that the valuer will do the valuation as per any of the international valuation standards. So the standards issued by ICAI are also the standards to be used by the internationally, and therefore my recommendation would be that please, irrespective of which institute you are member of, use the standards issued by the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. Then, of course, friends, as I said earlier, we obviously have to, for successfully executing any valuation assignment, we obviously need to have a very good understanding of the methods and the approaches as far as the valuation is concerned. Assuming that all of you who are there, or most of you who are there on the group, or listening on the Facebook, or listening on the YouTube, or listening on any other social media now or later on, I assume that you already have passed the evaluation exam and you're already practicing as a valuation professional. Therefore, it is my presumption that your understanding about the valuation standards, your understanding about the approaches for the valuation is already good. We only need to understand as to when and where the standards and which method should be used and which approach should be used. And that is very important, because many times I do receive some queries from different professional brothers and sisters all over the country, asking as to this is the situation, which method or which approach they should use for the purpose of evaluation. So that's a very important aspect, and we will discuss as to which method or which approach under which situation should be used for the purpose of valuation. Friends, that we would look at the prerequisites for valuation in case of different situations. So what are the prerequisites? What are the things that we need to understand? So we need to be good in Index 113. We need to have a good understanding of Index 103. We need to have a good understanding of certain regulations issued by SEBI. So, which are all these requirements or these all these prerequisites that we need to have a good understanding? That is, friends, what we are going to cover going forward. SEBI regulations relevant to financial asset valuation. So, SEBI has issued many regulations. Four of them are directly related with the valuation. Specifying different situations. So, which are those SEBI's four regulations that we need to be aware of? Not only we need to be aware of, but we also need to be well versed with those SEBI regulations, because our understanding of those standards, those regulations, would ensure that we are able to do valuation relating to those regulations very efficiently, very effectively, to the satisfaction of our client and to the satisfaction of our shareholders. Just a second. I think there's a small technical hitch. Give me a second, please. Just 1 second.
Yes, sir.
Am I audible? Krishna, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You're audible, sir.
Very good. So we would look at those SEBI regulations, four SEBI regulations, as to which are those four SEBI regulations are that we need to be fully well versed with. Thereafter, friends, we would look at awareness of index requiring fair value measurement. Now, friends, all of us know that in our country, index have been becoming mandatory progressively starting from 1st April 2016 in this country. Started with being mandatory for companies having net worth of 500 crore or more, or listed, or in the process of listing. Even the companies which were not listed but having net worth of 500 crore, for them also index have become mandatory from 1st April 2016. And thereafter, even the companies having net worth of 250 crore and 250 crore and above, indices have become mandatory. All put together, there are 39 standards. And friends, interesting thing for we valuation professionals is that many of these standards would require fair value measurement. And since they require fair value measurement, then who will do this fair value measurement? Obviously, this fair value measurement will need to be done by a registered valuer like you and me. And therefore, we would also understand as to which are the standards where fair value measurement is required. Again, please remember, friends, why do we need to know as to which are these indices where the fair value measurement is necessary? Because that is the scope of professional work for us. So if I know that these are the standards available under which the companies to whom index have become mandatory, they will need to obtain a valuation report from a registered valuer, then I understand this is my scope, and this is the area where I can offer my services to various companies. So this is what we would be looking at it actually. And then friends, look at interface with the client for execution of the assignment. Now everything is fine, but then we also need to be aware that all said and done, we need to constantly interface or communicate with the client. So how does the process of communication with the client starts? Where does it start from? That is what we would be looking at it. And then contents of a valuation report. I'm sure this is a very common query from everybody as to what should be the content of a valuation report, and what should the structure, what should be the format, in what order the different things should appear in a valuation report, because ultimately your valuation report is a very good marketing point for you, because the content that you put in a valuation report are of course very important in your establishing your credibility with the prospective clients or the existing clients. But the way you present your report, and the contents you present also has a very positive impression on your client. Besides, certain mandatory requirements are there as far as the reporting is concerned. So those points also will need to be taken care of. This is what we would discuss. Guidelines on use of caveats, limitations, disclaimers by IBBI. So IBBI on 1st September 1st September 20 have brought out separate set of guidelines with regard to the use of caveats, limitations, and disclaimers by the registered valuers. So we have to adhere with those caveats, with those guidelines with regard to the caveats and limitations and the disclaimers. We just need to be aware of those guidelines, as to those guidelines are to be complied with, and which means what? Which means every one of us must have a copy of those guidelines of 1st September 20 issued by the IBBI, and keep it along our side, so that whenever we are making a valuation report, we ensure that the caveats or the limitations or the disclaimers that we insert in the valuation report are as per the guidelines issued by the IBBI and not otherwise. Then, of course, friends, we need to be fully aware and compliant with the code of conduct as covered in the evaluation rules 2017. I think this is very, very important aspect for the evaluation professional. Things have been very clearly brought out and given in the evaluation rule itself. So as the evaluation professional, we need to be absolutely aware of each and every aspect of the code of conduct and the standards which have been incorporated in the evaluation rules, and we need to ensure that we fully comply with them. And finally, friends, I would also share some of the important lessons which I have learned over the years in my practice as a evaluation professional. Hopefully, the same may also be useful for all the participants attending this session. So, friends, chapter 17, section 247 is mandates. It is a section that mandates that any valuation of any security or liability or asset, tangible or intangible, if it has to be done as per the requirements of the Companies Act anywhere, this valuation has to be done by a registered valuer only. And who is a registered valuer? Registered valuer is one who has passed the exam of the valuation exam, and who is a member of IBBI. So he has to be a member of IBBI, and he also has to be a member of an RVO, which both goes simultaneously. And nobody else other than a registered valuer can do the evaluation as per the provisions of the Companies Act. That is the first requirement that we need to be aware of as far as successful execution of a valuation assignment is concerned. Then, friends, as I was saying earlier, the today in this country, the valuations are required. Valuations, and we are focusing on valuation of securities and financial assets. So the valuations of securities and financial assets are required as per the Companies Act, Income Tax Act, FEMA, and SEBI. So these are the four main statutes under which under which the valuations are required. Now, it's a different good news that, or likely good news, that the government of India has recently, not recently, few months back, brought out the Valuers Bill. And this Valuers Bill, of course, is yet to become a law, is yet to be taken up in the Parliament and become a law. But as per the provisions incorporated in the Valuers Bill, the vision is that tomorrow, whether it is the Income Tax Act or SEBI or FEMA or Companies Act or any other statute in this country, if the valuation has to be done of any of the assets of a company, then all the valuations will need to be done only by a registered valuer, not by the fragmented people today. Say, for example, as far as the valuation under the Companies Act is concerned, a registered valuer can do the valuation. Rather, only a registered valuer can do valuation which are required as per the Companies Act. Merchant banker cannot do it, chartered accountant cannot do it, CMA cannot do it. CMA or CA they have to be registered valuer if they have to do the valuation as per the requirements of Companies Act. Under the income tax, incidentally, even a registered valuer cannot do the valuation as per the current requirement under the Income Tax Act. Even a chartered accountant cannot do valuation under the income tax. This is really interesting and something which is beyond understanding as to how a chartered accountant can be prohibited from valuing the assets under the Income Tax Act. But that is what is the current provision. I understand there is a story, there are reasons behind such a step taken by the CBDT, but hopefully going forward those issues would be sorted out. So a chartered accountant or a cost and management accountant or a company secretary can also not do the valuation of any asset under the Income Tax Act. It is only a merchant banker. Now this is really very interesting that merchant banker, what locus standi a merchant banker has to do the valuation as per the under the Income Tax Act, but this is how it is. And I understand that most of these merchant banker would generally take help of a registered valuer or a chartered accountant for getting the valuation done, and then of course they will put their thappa and give it to the client as per the requirement of the Income Tax Act. But this is how it is, and today this is what the situation is that you and I must be aware of. Under the FEMA, a registered valuer can do the valuation, merchant banker can do the valuation, chartered accountants can do the valuation, CMA cannot do the valuation. But in case of SEBI progressively is moving towards the valuation to be done by a registered valuer. So under many of the regulations, the registered valuers are already authorized to do the valuation under the SEBI regulations. And as per the SEBI requirements, a merchant banker can do the valuation actually. So friends, this is the situation as far as the statutes, the major statutes under which valuations are required and where the valuation can be done by different professionals. So it can be either a chartered accountant or a merchant banker or a registered valuer. But I'm quite hopeful, or everybody is hopeful in this country, that going forward, once the Valuers Bill becomes a law, it would have a provision that valuation required under any of the statute in this country for any company will need to be done by a registered valuer only, because this will facilitate the process of standardization of the profession, which is so much important and necessary at this point in time. Now, friends, let me discuss with you which are the chapters under which chapters of the Companies Act under which the valuations are required. So number one, you have chapter 3. Chapter 3 is the valuations would be required for prospectus and allotment of securities, public offer or private placement. So this is a question which is generally asked as to is the valuation required in case of issue of shares. So please remember, is the valuation required in case of issue of the preference shares? Please remember, as far as the law is concerned, any issue of shares, preference or equity, the valuation will be required. Valuation will be required by a registered valuer. A question can arise: will the valuation be required in case of the rights issue? Now, please understand the logic and reason behind the valuation. And once you understand the logic and reason behind the valuation, then automatically this doubt of yours whether valuation will be required in case of rights issue or not will get clarified. So remember, why the valuation? The valuation is to ensure that nobody is put in an unfairly advantageous position or unfairly disadvantageous position. And therefore, when a company is coming out with a private placement, or a company is coming out with a public issue, or company is coming out with a follow-on offer. Now, in all those cases, valuation is necessary because what is going to happen is the new set of shareholders are going to come into the fold of the company, and therefore it is necessary that the price at which the new shares are issued are valued properly so that the existing shareholders are not at a disadvantage unnecessarily. Now, will that be the case in case of rights issue? We have to check. Now, please remember, in case if the rights issue is being issued where there are no foreign shareholders, or right, if there are no foreign shareholders, then there are no foreign shareholders. At the same time, there is no provision for the renunciation of the rights in favor of somebody else. If these two things are not there, that means if these are plain rights issue, that means only the existing shareholders will get the shares and nobody else will get. In that case, in my view, valuation will not be required, because in that case, valuation is not going to put anybody at an advantageous position or unfairly at a disadvantageous position. But in case if the shares are going to be issued where the foreign investors are involved, so rights offer is going to be exercised by the foreign shareholders also. So in any case, since the foreign shareholders are involved, foreign currency is involved. And please remember, the moment foreign currency is involved, valuation becomes mandatory. Doesn't really matter as to whether the number of shareholders outside are minimal, marginal, more, majority. Irrespective of that, the valuation in that case becomes mandatory. Likewise, in case if the company is going to have the provision where the shareholders will have a right to renounce their rights in somebody's favor, it is better to do the valuation. And why it is better to do the valuation? Because there has been a case recently in the past where the company used this mechanism of rights issue purposely to bring a new set of people, where the existing set of people deliberately should the renounce the rights in favor of somebody else. Now that is not correct. That is not in the spirit of the law, and therefore in that case rights becomes valuation of right becomes necessary. So if I can sum it up, अगर plain vanilla rights issue है, that means जितने भी existing shareholders हैं उनको ही offer जाएगा. Of course, offer will go only to the existing shareholders, and they will not exercise their rights in favor of somebody else. And therefore, in that case, valuation is not required, because you are not putting anybody at unfair disadvantage or advantage. In case there are no foreign shareholders and rights issue is plain rights issue, no valuation is required. Otherwise, please have the valuation done. Now, in any case, as a valuation professional, friends, I would suggest that even if it is a plain vanilla rights issue, even that, please have the valuation done. Because why have the valuation done? Because this would be helping the board of director in taking a right decision. It would be helping the shareholders in taking a right decision, because ultimately the pricing should be correct and pricing has to be correct. And the board of directors are not valuation experts. Shareholders are not valuation experts. And therefore they cannot be expected to fix the price of the rights issue at random. Of course, in fixing the price of a rights issue, the company would take a lot of factors into account as to what their funds requirements are. And accordingly, they would decide as to how many shares to issue. But remember, again, to help the board, to help the shareholders take a decision, do the evaluation, and that's a good practice in any case. That's a good corporate governance practice in any case. Then you have a chapter 4, and the chapter 4 deals with the share capital debenture. That's where you would require the evaluation. Then chapter 15, companies, arrangement and amalgamation. I'm sure you can understand. So in case of amalgamation, merger, demerger, and all those issues would require valuation for sure. Then chapter 17, I've discussed with you, it deals with the registered valuer, and chapter 20 deals with the winding up. So these, friends, are the topics that relate to the valuation profession as such, and we should be aware of all these chapters as a registered valuer. Now let's look at, friends, the different uh, the the different provisions of the Companies Act under which valuations are required. And remember, this is just to be aware as to what is the size of the market that we have. So under section 54 1D, valuation would be required for issue of sweat equity shares by an unlisted company. Section 21C, valuation report for further issue of share capital. Section 67(3), clause B, provision of money by a company. So valuation would be required. Section 192, subsection 2, valuation of assets involving directors, valuation will be required. And I'm sure you can understand as to why the valuation is required, because if it's a non-cash transaction, how do you do the non-cash transaction without doing the valuation? So under section 192, subsection 2, the valuation would be required. Section 232CV, valuation of shares, property, and assets of the company under a scheme of corporate debt restructuring will be necessary. Section 230, subsection 3, valuation report along with notice of creditors, shareholders meeting under a scheme of companies, compromise or arrangement will be necessary. Section 232, subsection 2D, the report of the expert with regard to valuation, if any, would be circulated for meeting of creditors. That is what we need to remember. Section 232, subsection 3H, the valuation report to be made by the tribunal for exit opportunity to the shareholders. So under section 232, subsection 3H, when the shareholders are to be given an opportunity to exit for whatever reason, then for this opportunity, for the exit to happen, the valuation will need to be done. Section 234, valuation in case of cross-border merger. So remember, now under section 234, it is possible for an Indian company to merge with the foreign company and vice versa. And remember, doesn't really matter whether it is a global merger, cross-border merger, or domestic merger, or domestic amalgamation. Under section 234, in case of cross-border, in any case, irrespective whether it's cross-border or non-cross-border, whenever there is a merger, whenever there is amalgamation, whenever there is demerger, it will require valuation. And why will it require valuation? For the obvious reason as to without valuation, how do you fix a price? So under section 234, when there is a cross-border merger happening, in that case, also valuation will be necessary. And who will do this valuation? This valuation will need to be done by a registered valuer as per section 247, chapter 17. Section 236 of section 2, valuation of equity shares held by the minority shareholders. So this is again, in case an acquirer or person acting in concert with the acquirer acquires 90% or more of the equity capital in a company, they can offer to the minority shareholder, or the minority shareholder can offer to the acquirer. It can happen vice versa, to acquire the minority shareholding at a valuation determined by the registered valuer. So the majority shareholder, in case if they wish to buy the minority shareholder, obviously for the buyback to the purchase to happen, the acquisition to happen, it would require under section 236 subsection 2, the valuation by a registered valuer. Under section 281 subsection 1, a valuing asset for submission of report by liquidator will be necessary. Under section 262C also will be required. Section 305 subsection 2D, it will be necessary. And section 319 3B, also the valuation, that is valuation of shares to determine interest of dissenting member. So it is possible in case of merger, amalgamation, acquisition, or any of these corporate restructuring decision, there may be certain shareholders who may be dissenting, who may not be agreeing with the scheme of merger. So in that case, what do you do? In that case, the dissenting shareholder will have an opportunity to get out. And how do they get out? They get out at a price which is given by the registered valuer. So friends, these are some of the provisions under which under the Companies Act. And then under the IBC also, friends, valuation is required. under the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Codes 2016. Also, in certain cases, valuation is required, as we all know. So, Regulation 27 of insolvency resolution process for the corporate persons would require the valuation. I'm sure those of you who are valuation professional and also insolvency professional, those of you who are practicing as an insolvency professional would know that as soon as a person is appointed as IRP or a resolution professional, the first thing that he has to do is to appoint two registered valuer, and that is as per Regulation 27 of the IBBI regulation on insolvency resolution process for corporate persons. Then in case of Regulation 35, in case of liquidation process, as per Regulation 35, again valuation is required. And again, as per Section 59, subsection 3B clause 2 of code, the valuation is required by a registered valuer. So friends, these are the broad spectrum of the scope of the valuation, which is available for all of us as registered valuer. Now friends, now we come to the requirements of valuation standards by ICAI or IVSC. So friends, as I said earlier, one of the reasons as to why the government of India thought of inserting Section 247 and the Chapter 17 in the Companies Act 2013, one of the reasons is to standardize the profession of valuers in this country. It's not that valuation was not done in this country for all these years. It was done, but it was, truly speaking, quite an ad hoc system of valuation. Of course, there were the valuations were done by chartered accountants. It was done by the merchant banker, but there were no standards as such as to how those valuations should be done. Some norms were there, which got established by way of practice of the profession, but no formal standards and formal rules. Now we have the formal rules. Not only we have the formal rules, now we also have the formal standards. I have covered this point already, and that is why I will not spend so much of time on this. In brief, I would say that anybody in India, the Institute of Chartered Accountants has already issued the valuation standards, and those valuation standards are to be adhered to in any of the valuation exercise done by a registered valuer by a person who is a chartered accountant. And my recommendation is, doesn't really matter as to whether you are a chartered accountant or you are any other you belong to any other profession. If you are a registered valuer, follow the standards issued by the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. Please remember, the standards are issued for what purpose? Standards are issued for the benefit of the fraternity as a whole. Because when you have these standards, you have like a lighthouse. You have a lighthouse that guides you as to what all things that you need to take care of, and therefore you have no confusion, and you do the assignment in a way in which it is required to be done as per the statute. But you also have the choice of following the International Valuation Standards Committee's valuation standards. And I can tell you the difference. I have gone through both these standards in detail. And the only difference which I find, the major difference which I find between these two standards is only one, and that is the valuation standards issued by the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India comprise of only securities and financial assets, whereas the valuation standards issued by the IVSC also have chapters on plant and machinery and land and building, and because that is where their scope is different. And in case of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, the scope is confined to the securities and financial assets. That is the major difference that I find. The rest of the things, friends, are more or less same. So you can follow either of these two, but I recommend that you should follow these standards issued by the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. Now, friends, what is also important is now we need to understand what are the methods and the approaches available for the purpose of valuation. Now, first thing that we need to be very clear in our mind, and that is, though there are three approaches for valuation, though there are a number of methods for valuation, it does not mean that any one of them can be used in any of the situation. No, that is definitely not the intent forget the intent, that is not possible also, because a different situation will require different method, different situation will require different approach. So as we all know already, and therefore I'm not emphasizing, there are three approaches to the valuation. So one is income approach, second is market approach, and third is the asset approach. And what we also need to understand in this context is the provisions in the Ind AS 113, which is on fair value measurement. Now, please remember, fair value measurement is the Ind AS 113, which is on fair value measurement, which is mandatory for the companies to whom Ind AS have become mandatory. Now, this Ind AS 113 talks in terms of a hierarchy of valuation inputs. So, what is the hierarchy? So, there's a level one. So level one talks about that when you're doing a valuation of an asset, then what you should do, you should take the quoted price. And quoted price means it becomes a market approach. And then it says that in case the quoted price is not available, because all the assets, number one, may not be traded. For all the assets, it is not possible that the stock exchanges are there. Even if the stock exchanges are there, it is not necessary that all the assets are available and traded on those stock exchanges. So it is possible that there's a company which is not traded on a stock market. So therefore, the quoted price will not be available in case of this company. So what do? You come to the level 2 input. And what is level 2 input? Level 2 input is observable input. That means something which is available in the market, some information which is available in the market, make use of that information for the purpose of doing the valuation. And this is again your market approach, because what you're doing is you are using the information which is based on the which is available in the market or in the public domain, and that's how it is part of your market approach. The third hierarchy, the third stage in the hierarchy is level 3 input, and level 3 input is unobservable. So that means what? That means एक कंपनी जिसका क्या वैल्यूएशन कर रहे हो, वो लिस्टेड है तो कोटेड प्राइस ले लो. वो कंपनी है लेकिन लिस्टेड नहीं है, तो उसकी जैसी कोई कंपनी ढूंढ के उसके साथ में मेकिंग सम एडजस्टमेंट्स, यू कैन डू द वैल्यूएशन ऑफ अनलिस्टेड कंपनी which is having a similar company listed on the stock market. Now, the third situation is that you are doing a valuation of a company which is neither listed nor it has a company of a similar type listed on the stock market. Then how do you do the valuation? Then you go for the level 3 input. And what is level 3 input? Level 3 input is unobservable input information. So that means some information which is not available in the public domain. यानी कि कोई ऐसी information valuation जो आपको चाहिए जो कि readily available है, तो ऐसा कुछ available नहीं है. readily available नहीं है, तो आप इस कंपनी का वैल्यूएशन कैसे करेंगे? You will do the valuation of this company by using the discounted cash flow method. So what do you do for doing the discounted cash flow method? For doing the discounted cash flow method, is the information available in the public domain? Answer is no, because nothing about the company as to what is the capacity, what is the demand, what is the market, what is the price, what is the cost. None of those informations are available in the public domain. You need to dig them out and build yourself, and therefore those are referred as level 3 input. So what you do, use level 3 input. So discounted cash flow method will be level 3 input as per the Ind AS 113, which is on fair value measurement. And this is what, friends, you have to remember as to it's not that any method can be used to every situation. No, you will have to view the situation, and according to the situation, you will need to decide as to which method to use. If you are doing valuation for a listed company, obviously you will have to follow the regulations issued by SEBI, because listed company hai, level 1 input available hai, and therefore follow the norms given in the SEBI regulations, do the valuations accordingly, and everything will be fine. Listed company नहीं है, SEBI regulation applicable नहीं होते हैं, obviously, because SEBI regulations are applicable only in case of listed companies. So in that case, what you do the market approach. Market approach भी possible नहीं है. Then what you do, come to the discounted cash flow method, which is the level 3 input. एक चीज आपको बस याद रखनी है फ्रेंड्स, कि अब मैं आपको बता दूं what is the guiding factor, कि कौन सा अप्रोच यूज करूं. Of course, we all understand there are two premises of valuation, and one is the going concern, and number 2 is the liquidation premise. So broadly there are two premises. So जब भी आप किसी कंपनी का वैल्यूएशन कर रहे हैं तो पहले आप चेक कर लें कि ये जो केस आपके सामने आया है ये किस कैटेगरी में जाता है. Does it go to the liquidation premise or does it go to the going concern premise? So obviously if it is going in the liquidation premise, then the valuation will have to be done as per the asset approach or the cost approach. If it is as per the going concern, in case of going concern, you will have to check level 1 का input use करना है कि level 2 का input use करना है कि level 3 का input use करना है. In any case, depending on listed company है, market approach. Listed company नहीं है, again you can use the market approach. Market approach possible नहीं है, then you go for the income approach, and that is where you use the discounted cash flow method. The bottom line is ultimately जब आपको एक कंपनी के वैल्यूएशन का असाइनमेंट मिलता है, what is the mandate given to you by the client? The mandate given to you and me by the client is, please find out a fair value of this asset for me. As simple as that. So please find out fair value of this asset for me. That is the mandate, unwritten mandate, if it is not written, given by the client. And what we have to do, we have to give him the fair value. That is what is our responsibility. And to give him the fair value, what method should you use? You apply your mind, and you should be able to get to the right point and right approach and right method, and do the valuation accordingly. Then friends, prerequisites for valuation in case of different forms of corporate restructuring. So और क्या क्या चीज हैं जो हमको मालूम होनी चाहिए for achieving a successful execution of a valuation assignment. So which are the other things that we ought to know in any case for doing execution of a valuation assignment, not only for the satisfaction of the client, but also for our satisfaction, at the same time ensuring that the ethical norms, the corporate governance norms, the code of conduct, the standards are all adhered to. Now friends, it's my very strong recommendation to everyone that come what may, we are professional. As a professional, we have to follow the code of conduct. We have to follow the ethics. We have to follow good governance, not because somebody is telling us. We have to follow because we want to follow. And why we want to follow? Because we are professional. Otherwise, there is no difference between a non-professional and a professional. Why is the government has given this responsibility, this opportunity only to the chartered accountants, cost accountants, and company secretaries? Because the government thinks that these are professionals. And this is the government is posing that trust in us, that trust, then we have to live up to this trust and this confidence. And we really have to set very high standards of ethics and good governance. A time should come that the government should say that the kind of ethics and the standards which are followed by the evaluation professional, there is no need to make any code of conduct mandatory for them, because they are doing it by themselves without any mandatory requirement. So that is what we need to do. So let us understand which are the other prerequisites for various situations. So number one, as I said, we really have to have a very good thorough understanding of Ind AS 113, which is on fair value measurement, and why we should have a very good understanding of 113 for fair value measurement, because unless we have a good understanding of fair value measurement Ind AS 113, how do we deliver the fair value measurement in the valuation assignments that we are doing? So that is number one. So we for executing any valuation assignments thoroughly, successfully, that is what we need to do. Number two, what we also should do, remember, more often than not, and you would see most of the valuation assignments that we get are coming from the Chapter 15 of the Companies Act, which is on compromise, arrangements, and amalgamations, encompassing Section 232 to 40. So what we need to do, we need to have a thorough understanding of Chapter 15 also, because since a lot of assignments relate to Chapter 15, then our understanding of Chapter 15 has to be fantastic. And that is what I would suggest and recommend for successful execution of any valuation assignment. Requirements of Ind AS 103 on business combinations. Again, remember friends, same thing, because many of the assignments that we get of valuation, they relate to chapter 15, which means mergers, amalgamation, which is nothing but business combinations. So if it is business combinations, that means we have to have a good understanding of Ind AS 103. Remember, friends, in my view, doesn't really matter. Otherwise, also, all of us आज की तारीख में हम सबकी इंडेक्स के बारे में अंडरस्टैंडिंग बहुत साउंड होना बहुत जरूरी है। क्यों जरूरी है? एक तो ये बहुत बढ़िया प्रोफेशनल अपॉर्चुनिटी है, और दूसरी बात, आने वाले समय में पूरी दुनिया इंडेक्स के बारे में बात करेगी, आईएफआरएस के बारे में बात करेगी। तो चूंकि इफ आईएफआरएस एंड इंडेक्स आर ऑलरेडी लैंग्वेज ऑफ अकाउंटिंग इन दिस कंट्री, will be more so in the days to come. It is better that we learn that language sooner than later, because that is what is going to help. So not only have a good understanding of Ind AS 113, not only have a good understanding of Ind AS 103, not only have a good understanding of Ind AS 109 or Ind AS 36, or all of them, have good understanding of all these standards. And I'm going to share with you, as we move forward, some of these standards which are exclusively applicable for the purpose of fair value measurement. They would require fair value measurement, and I'm going to share them with you. And number 4, requirements of SEBI regulation. So there are 4 regulations, and which I'm going to share with you. That is what we need to have a good understanding of. So number 1 is SEBI regulations on issue of capital and disclosure requirements regulation. So ICDR regulations of SEBI. That is what we need to understand. CEST, which is nothing but your takeover regulations. Takeover regulations, because when open offer is to be made, the evaluation has to be done, and there are different situations given, and based on those situations, one of the highest of those situations will be the value for the purpose of open offer. Now, what those situations are? So पिछले 52 हफ्तों में किस प्राइस पे शेयर टेक ओवर जो एक्वायरर है उसने शेयर खरीदा है, पिछले 26 हफ्तों में कितने पे खरीदा है. So all those things will need to be understood by reading the CEST, which is Substantial Acquisition of Shares and Takeover Regulation 2011. Delisting of equity shares, because many times when a company is going for delisting, and all those situations that I spoke to you about, the dissenting shareholders or minority shareholders. So likewise, delisting of equity shares would also require the evaluation, and in that case, the evaluation will have to be done as mentioned as per the guidelines given in the regulations of delisting of equity shares. And finally, friends, we all know that in case of the stock options, whereas share-based employee benefits also require valuation of shares. So again, how do you do the evaluation? So in such cases, remember, you will need to do the evaluation precisely as specified in these regulations. In certain cases, like in many of the FEMA regulations, you would see that the regulation would specify that the valuation has to be done as specified in any international valuation standard. So the moment it says any international valuation standard, now the choice and discretion is at choice, and the responsibility is with you. But as far as the SEBI related valuations are concerned, you do not have choice. You do not have the preference. You have the strict guidelines given, and you have to do right standard. All put in today's date, companies to whom Ind AS have become mandatory, all those companies will need to have these 39 standards taken care of. Incidentally, out of these 39 accounting standards, only 20 standards are applicable to every company to whom accounting standards have become mandatory. That means the 20 standards will be applicable in all the cases wherever the accounting standards have become mandatory. The remaining 19 standards would be applicable on case-to-case basis, depending on a specific situation. That is to you as an additional information as far as applicability of the indices is concerned. Now let me come to the main point. And the main point is, which are the standards, which are the Indian accounting standards where the fair value measurement is necessary. That means companies to which these standards have become mandatory, all these companies will need to have done